Hey kids, welcome to Stylus Robot Breaking Time thing. Today we're on all the coffee because I've had so much work to do. I couldn't even get a video at Wednesday because I haven't recorded any of these ahead of time. I don't have that kind of foresight. And I just had so many things that were priority number one, this has to be done first, that I just had to do everything the one time. So I worked a lot of hours, but found a little bit of a found the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know if you know this, but when sometimes you're applying for jobs and they ask you to do a test, and people are like, I don't want to do a test. But studios do tests too. So when somebody's looking for a studio to animate their show, they send out studio tests. So I had a couple of those thrown into my pile, and then my regular job, and then I'm also helping at character animators, and then the rigging department comment. I was like, I'm too busy for you guys. I just can't. No. Oh, also the YouTube monetization thing that just struck everyone. Turns out I only have 3,000 and change hours of view time, so I'm getting demonetized again. Ooh, I signed at the worst possible time. But upon researching why they're doing it, I feel like it's a reasonable thing to ask. I think in 4 or 5 months, if I kind of maintain my present viewership, I'll be back on the partner list. So let's get back to rigging this character. All right, so in the previous video, I ranted a lot about how to set yourself up and get ready. And I put in all my art and set up most of my pivot points. And they're just a ballpark, because here you can see this is not going to work. The arm has been hacked off in a couple places. Her shoulder's quite pointy. I may regret that. Will I want to round it out? Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. Who knows? Let's just play around with it. I want to break this chest up a bit, break this up a bit. Let's play around with the neck here. There's a few different ways I could go about this. I think this top part I'm going to keep as one piece. These two guys here. This torso is going to get a little bit bigger. If you guys are not familiar with backdrops, if you click on the backdrop, you can move everything in it very easily. And if you want to move the backdrop itself, you have to select it down here, and then you can move it out from under here. Or you can scale it up and scale it down without affecting this stuff. So these things are just so good. Up here, in your little drop-down menu, insert backdrop. Boop. And it just dropped another one right on top of this one. Move that down here. You get to choose from a variety of really obnoxious colors. They all kind of hurt your eyes. And then you can add a name in here, which will put stuff up at the top. And any notes you put in there is going to come in here. So any of the animators checking out your stuff will be able to see those notes you're adding in. That's real handy. I love that they added those. I'm going to move my network up to make sure that my little video of my head is not going to interfere. Are we going with the prefix? I think I'm just going to axe the prefix off my whole thing here. Underscore and just get rid of all the prefixes. Now I can just bring in my no prefix drawing. The necklace is going to need a master peg to collect all these things in. And I'll keep the one I have with the 2 layers because I've got the front on the line art and the back on the color art. I'll keep that one as this guy here, and then I'm going to move this down here onto another one. So let's take this, ungroup, and paste. And now I also want this little D20. Did you notice that? So cute. I'm totally addicted to Critical Role. So I was like, I should put a little D20 in there. That'd be so cute. And then let's rename these. And then grab my pivots and bring them over. I need my copy paste pivot script. I haven't gotten around to it. Oh, so busy I am. Now, this thing here, we have the choice of keeping it as one piece or breaking it up into 2 pieces. Because if we wanted to change it, we could skew it, but we couldn't bring one piece over and the other piece over. We could also put in a little deformer like this. You'd want to put an envelope deformer, but I'm not going to keep this. I'm just showing you so that if we wanted to move it around, we could do that. But for now, I'm just going to keep it like this because I don't know how much of a problem the rotation is going to be once we get into that. That's a problem I can solve a little later. So next I'm going to break this chest up. So this is going to be a real interesting thing to look at because I have because I'm using trace lines that are different colors. This guy here and this guy here, I want it to have the same line all the way out here. but it's got to be two different colors depending on which thing is overlapping it. So what I'm going to do is use cutters to affect the color of these lines. Here's the chest. I'm going to have, and this is why it helps keep your art around so you can So let's take a look at these straps. I think a lot of this is going to have to get broken up into a ton of pieces. All right, so I'm just going to take a look at this and see how it needs to rotate. This here needs to be separated so that we can change the leveling here. This guy here, I think, is going to be separated. And then this back here. All right. So that's one of the things about rigging that really comes with experience, is looking at things and being able to break it up in your head and imagine how it's rotating and how you're animating it. And it's one of the reasons that the best riggers have animation experience, because they know what they want the character to do. They know the needs of an animation crew, so they can think about some of the problems that the animators are going to have and try and fix them before they get there. Here I'm going to put in a couple shoulders. And I like working in very open networks like this. I don't make a lot of groups. What I do instead is use a lot of backdrops and composites to keep things organized a little bit better. But I think working in an open network is a little bit easier for baby animators, because they're not having to remember to go back into a group where they've hidden these shoulder cutters and stuff like that. They don't have to pull things out of groups and make sure your multi-port ins and multi-port outs are working. So I recommend, if you're a novice, starting this way, and then once you have your character rigged, you can use groups to organize them then, and you can make sensible decisions once everything's finished. But personally, I wouldn't start that way. I know if you're walking into another rigger's studio, they're going to give you the way they like it done, and you just have to deal with that. I have friends who are riggers who work in groups exclusively, and they think what I do is an atrocity to life. So, you know, whatever, you take it as you also never know what kind of art you're going to get. Of course, I've designed this myself, so I know I can change whatever I want. I'm going to get away with it. I don't have to worry about getting mad at myself later. I might, but I only have myself to blame. But sometimes you might end up having to hack this up a lot. I might do a video at some point in the future that talks about designing for rigging. I think that would be helpful for designers. But depending on the people that you're getting your art from, they may not know what pieces are actually needed. So if you move the head, the neck might not exist in behind that. You have to build every single piece from scratch. Or you'll get a shoulder that this is all one piece, and you'll have to hack off the shoulder and then rebuild it. So it's really important to make sure that you're keeping all your art consistent. Like even that little thing here, this is wrong. If you're looking at the character and the line breaks like that, that's wrong. And you need to fix those little details in the rig, because your attention to detail is one time. The animation's attention to detail could be hundreds of times. If there's 300 scenes in an episode and all the art is broken like that, they're going to have to fix it over and over again until the rig gets fixed. And that's the worst. Don't do that to people. The chest here I'm going to give another peg to. All right, I'm over at Cartoon Flow. I need my copy-paste pivot script. I love it. Oh, hey, look! They posted my video about it. Yeah, I love it so much. I actually messaged Cartoon Flow about this when it first came out, because I wanted the paste position as well. And within like a day, I got an updated version. I love it so much. So please go to Cartoon Flow for all your add-on needs. Alright, so once you've got your script downloaded, you're going to want to go into your app data, roaming. You can search on how to do this. And then it's got your Toonboom animation, and it's got scripts. I have 14 and 15 running on this, so here I'm going to put it in my 14 scripts. Boop. And then in here, in the folder you unzip from the place, here are your scripts right there. Kablunk. You're going to want to toss your script icons in the appropriate folder. So here's the script icons folder. You can just paste them in there. See, I've already got some stuff in there belong to Cartoon Flow, so helpful. And then the resources. You want to dump into the resources. Yeah, you drop in your resources folder. Also in here. So hopefully that works. There we go. Bless is hard for putting in these bright blue things to find them. I hate this menu. It's the worst menu. Yay, copy, paste, pivot, script. It's so pretty. Apply. So now life will be a little bit easier. You can open it. Oh, I did it wrong. Okay, so what I did wrong was instead of pasting in this thing, the like actual version number thing, I was supposed to paste in the whole folder, which is actually a little easier. Hopefully that makes sense. You can search how to do that online and it'll be more succinct than whatever I'm going to cobble that mess into that I just did. Show you. So good. Here I add a new drawing so I can copy the shoulder pivot and then here I can paste the pivot. See, it just pops over and that'll save you a ton of time. The position is for 15 stuff. Some of the like little new features, they have a pivot position and you'll be able to copy the pivot from this and paste the position. So I go over that in some of my like 15 geek out videos, but this is essential for anybody who's rigging 100%. Okay, so the chest, I'm going to take this part here and I'm going to make that a front piece and make it a little bit bigger. Because what I'm going to do is use the overall chest to mask this thing here so that it'll be a little bit more flexible. And then I can use this to just hold the skin tone, if that makes sense. So now I have a flexible chest piece in the front and then the chest in behind I can just fill out. Let's put that on the top. There you go. So let's cut out all this stuff. And the straps are going to be a little bit tricky, so let's just pack one piece at a time. So now, see, I need a pivot for this guy. So I can copy the pivot of that guy and paste the pivot here, and now I've got a nicely placed pivot. And I might need to move it around a little bit if I don't want it to be spot on, but it's just, I don't have to go over there. Or is it that way? I don't have to go looking for it. I need 2 straps. Now, I always do 1 left and 2 right. It's good to keep track on that, maybe, just for your own sensibilities. It's not too often you actually have to remember which one's 1 or which one's 2, because most animators, of course, just click on the thing and then whatever the name is there. But consistency is nice. Strap. Now, either the strap here is going to be in charge of the chest, displaying the chest, or the chest is going to be displaying the strap. Something I'm going to need to play around with. And then also with these straps, I need to decide whether they're going to rotate from the top or the bottom. I think the top is going to be a little bit easier because as this turns, the length of these are going to change, but the part up here is not going to change too much. Copy pivot. I can select both of them and paste the pivot. Yeah! And all these are just placeholders. That's one thing rigging this whole thing in front of people is going to really showcase, is how sometimes it's really just a guess and check system. I think the straps are going to cut this. I might put the boobs on top of the shirt. Let's see. All right. This is feeling good. I know it doesn't feel like it's feeling good, but it is. And it'll start coming together when this comes together, these shoulders. So the skin part I'm going to put on the color art for both of them, and you can do one at a time, or you can do it in tandem. It's not really, doesn't really matter. I have to reach way up here. I'm trying not to hit my microphone because it's like right there off screen, so I'm trying to reach the color like around it. I'm under control. Everything's under control. And I'm going to add a green screen cutter to these shoulders like this. Boop. And I'm going to use the underlay for that layer. Okay, so here on this side, I'll do the same thing. And put it on the underlay. And now we're going to use our layer selectors. Get rid of this stuff. I usually don't move my interface around too much. I'm just trying to make sure everything's visible above my face. But I've had people ask me how I set my interface up for rigging or for animating. And if I'm animating, my screen looks more like this. And if I'm rigging, my screen looks more like this. Like, that's the only thing I change. Aside from that, everything stays the same. All right, layer selectors. So now I have a choice of giving each of these their own separate layer selectors or sharing layer selectors. For now, I'm going to have them shared because they might not need to be separate, and I like to use as few as possible. So I'm going to start by giving them shared ones until I need them to have separate ones, and then I'll add them if it's necessary. The line art I'm going to move to the front. Color art I'm going to move to the back. And the underlay is not going to be displayed, that green screen cutter. So this underlay is going to cut all the chest bits. So the chests and the straps here, all that's going to be cut. So I'm going to have them share a composite and use one cutter for that. Boop. A lot of people don't use composites enough. They'll have 4 cutters when one will do. And we don't want it in first. We want the, there you go. So hopefully this is making a little bit of sense now. As I move it up, it's going to display more of these straps and chest. Right? But here, if you zoom in, you can see that the line is being cut here by this thing. All you have to do there is just make sure that the line of the shoulders is in front of the chest. Right? And now we have this issue where the skin colored line out here is one color, but we want the strap line to be a darker color. So what I'm going to do here on the shoulders is copy this line, make sure I'm going to get rid of those extra strokes lying around, and I'm going to paste it into the overlay. So here on the line art and overlay, we have 2 of the same line art, overlay. But the overlay layer, I'm going to make this darker color. So the overlay is dark, the line is light. Boop. And now I'm going to need the straps. Let's do this. And the straps are going to cut those lines. So the overlay line is the dark line, and the line art is the light line, right? We can even add another little composite here. All right, so now we're going to need a cutter. So we're going to tell this that I only want the dark line where the straps are. See the difference? So this is without that, and now we add that in over it. And wherever we move our line, it's going to display the dark outline here. Wow. We also may need to do it for this part, but I think that this strap is always overlapping this guy here. That's something we may need to do later, but don't do it until you need to do it, because fewer cutters scare the animators less. All right, now we have this outside bit here, and so we're planning on having our straps cut the chest. We could also, you know what? I think I'm going to change my mind on that one. The chest I'm going to bring in just a little bit. I will keep it taller in case we need that to show up, and that, of course, is being cut by our shoulders, so that's fine. And then instead of the straps cutting the chest, I can make sure that this part here is on top of those straps, and that the straps have brown on them. So like this. If that makes sense. So now if it moves out, it'll still have shirt attached to it. So that way I can rotate these around or spread them out depending on how things need to happen. And this is why I said sometimes it might seem better to have the pivot point down here, but for now we'll keep it there because in the other views I think that it might be better to have it at the top. So now I'm going to go boop. I'm also going to add a peg in here that includes all of the pieces of the chest without the shoulders, because I think that'll be a handy thing to own. Where are you? Why are you over there? That's a crazy place. I think that might be something I want down the road. I'd rather have pegs I don't need than have to add pegs in the middle of the story here. And then the chest, I'm going to... There are a few different ways to figure out your exact pivot on this. I like to draw a little dot, then use my ellipse tool to just create a circle, and then select and move them. Another way that I learned at the Toonboom camp is to fill your circle and then shrink it down holding your Alt-Shift, and that'll give you your pivot point after. So if you've already got a circle and you need to find the center, that's the easiest way to do that. But if you are making your own circle, I like doing it this way. And it's tomato, tomato. And I'm gonna bloop. And then I'm going to take all this stuff here, put on the color art. Just, that's not a necessary step. It's just often if you end up throwing auto patches or something in there later, then it's handy to have that done. I'm going to try not to use too many auto patches on this because my rigging friend will yell at me. And since we're all getting all this chest part in, I'll show you what I like to do deformer-wise. Some people like to use envelope deformers that go all the way around. I don't want to do that unless I need to do that. Just, I think it's too heavy to do it as just like an everyday thing. So I just disagree with the studios that do it that way and grin and bear it. I like to do just a single deformer running up the chest that I can rotate like that. That's my preferred way. And then you can move it up here and it'll move all the pieces. Yeah, you can see there's a few little weird fracturing issues here, but they render fine. It's just in this view. The shoulders are going to get too wonky, so I'm not going to include the shoulders in there. What I'm going to do instead is open up my deformer group. So don't be scared, baby riggers. Don't be scared to open these groups and see what lives inside. And I'm going to grab a kinematic output. There's a 3D kinematic output. You just want the regular kinematic output like this. And what I'm going to do is connect it to this guy here. So what this is going to do is allow me to use the location of this curve deformer to move things, but it's not going to deform them. All right, so here you can see once you come out the multi-port out, it's right here. And we're going to drag this over to the shoulders. Boop, boop. Now when it moves the torso, it's going to move the shoulders as well. But the shoulders aren't going to deform. They're going to be able to animate independently and keep their general shape. You can see here, that's where the two shoulders, green screen is not quite overlapping. The head will hide that, but if it bothers you, you can just make sure that your art overlaps a little bit. And I'm also going to use that kinematic output for everything else, the head or the necklace, and also the neck and head. So this is one of the things I prefer that doesn't always work. Like studios don't always like this method of doing things, but I think it has the most flexibility for the least amount of processing power, because when you put envelope deformers on all this stuff, it just gets very heavy quickly, and I don't think that the benefit of having it there makes it worth the energy cost, if that makes sense. If I happen to have a scene where I need an envelope deformer, I'd rather add it when it's needed rather than just have it there bogging down my scene. And now I am going to break her chest up one more time, because when she's rotating, because she has kind of a bigger rounded chest here, it's getting a little bit stretched and weird, and it's, you know, she's getting some sag. We don't want old granny sag issues because our deformer, like that's a problem. So I'll just call it chest as well. I have to be careful about my language. I used the word butt too many times in a video and it got demonetized. I don't know what you want from me. And this is a situation where you could easily get off model. So if you are working from the studio artwork or something, you definitely want to make sure that you're keeping the shape of this belly correct. You don't want to accidentally train wreck their design there. I'm probably gonna have to break these up again so we have a left and a right, because as it rotates we're gonna need that to work out, but I can just fill this in. And 4, and I'm gonna take the color, put it on the color line, because we're gonna have to separate the lines here because we don't want lines on the top. So boop boop, again I'm going to use a little composite, separate these guys out, because instead of using 2 cutters, I'm going to use 1. And I'm going to need a line and a color art. I just happen to have a couple here, so I'll copy and paste. Line art, color art, cutter. Cut the line with the chest. Boop. Alright, so here we're getting this weird axe, this weird line cut. And that's because this line here is overlapping where this comes here. So we don't want that to look like that. We only want where the colored part here is to cut that. And because this is layered, like we have some brown on top of brown on top of brown, we can probably use an auto patch safely there without worrying about any anti-aliasing. So here we're not going to see any white through the background. Let's add in a color card just to be sure. Yeah, so I'm not getting any gray showing through here where that auto patch is. All right, so let's copy our pivot from here. We'll paste the pivot there, and then we can move it down. I think I'm gonna do it right here. But again, that may change when we actually rotate the character. Now chest 3 and 4, we're gonna use the kinematic output. One thing you can do to limit these long strands is just put a peg in there just to pull the kinematic output down, so then instead of 3 or 4 strands, you'll only have 1. It will add a peg, but pegs are cheap, so that doesn't feel like a problem to me. And you can even just write KO peg. So then you know the kinematic output's just coming down here. That's just a tidiness one. So if we connect them, we're gonna have to counter animate them quite a bit. They're very pendulous problems now. And I'm wondering what the lesser evil is here now to counter animate them. I think that's better, actually. They're gonna maintain their volume more. I mean, your character's never gonna do that. And the good thing about rigging your front views, you can just reset everything. You can Control A and then Shift R to reset everything into place, so you can break it up a lot and then test it. So I think this is actually the lesser of the two evils. Let's save that. Okay, so I'm gonna stick with the weird pendulum boobs until we start getting the 3/4 front views, because whatever works there is going to be the solution that I'm going with. There's no perfect solution there. Can't win them all. All right, so that's our chest working, mostly. We've got a few little questions that are going to get answered as we rotate it around. This might need to be broken up more. Oh, that pendulum, that should follow there. This is another choice of adding pegs, so we could have it skew with this skew, and then you may need to counter animate it here. There is a way to solve that in 15 without adding another peg, but one solution would be to have an overall necklace peg, and then this one, so you can skew separately and then move it along, or you can move both of them. I think I might replace it once we get into 15, but for now, for the 14, I want to be able to skew the necklace a lot, counter animate my bauble here, and then animate it for secondary action and stuff. I could also, got my envelope deformer here, so if I was going to do this and animate this guy using my dealy here, I could add a kinematic output to this curve. So here I've selected the node I want to take a peek at and hit O, and I've gone in here to which curve it is. It's the center one. Logically that makes sense, but if you have a big multi-tiered chain, it might be a little bit confusing. And then grab my kinematic output again from the center, and then hang my necklace on that. So now if I skew my thing here, I can get some more rotation out of this necklace. Make sure that your edge is hidden, but my D20 is not going to be affected. See, it's just like a bird on a wire. Let's keep that there for now. Maybe I'll change my mind, maybe it won't. Who knows? That's how this goes. A little bit of guess and check all the way along. These boobs might need to change, who knows? But at this point, I think we're doing okay. So that's it for this episode. I think this is going to be a decent length, a nice big chunk. But we've gotten this far. The head is pretty much done. All right, so the head is pretty much done. It just needs drawing substitutions, which I actually haven't had time. Boop, boop, boop. So head's working, neck's working, and that part's, the neck's not working. And I have to fill in this part behind here. Then our torso's starting to come along. But I feel okay with this so far. All right, so next time we come in, I'm going to keep moving down. Maybe I'll get into this shoulder part and this down here. We'll see how far we get. Thanks for your patience for putting up no video this week. Nobody's been complaining. Good stamina if you stuck around this far. Thanks for dropping by. If there's any questions, of course, leave them down below. Like, share, subscribe, all those things interesting people. It's good to do, and I will see you in the next video.